Hey everyone, we are playing Dimir Rogues today. This is not a very innovative deck, but I have been trying a lot of different things recently, and not many of them have panned out very well. Since the Uro ban, decks have gotten a lot more aggressive because they're no longer being held in check by the immense power that was Uro in a format that was expecting Uro to be here. So his absence is allowing people to play some pretty strong aggressive decks. I haven't found a good brew that I've been satisfied with how it performs yet. I've been playing with a lot of allies and some other strategies, and just haven't found anything that's really clicking. But I thought since I didn't have anything else specially prepared for this week, we could just do a regular rogues deck. I think this build's probably a little different from what some other people are running. Specifically, I'm playing Thieving Skydiver and Call of the Death Dweller, both of which have been entirely justified in my experience. So I'm pretty happy with how this deck is performing. We'll see if we can get some similar matches today. But just to give a quick rundown of what this deck does and how it works. This is a tempo and disruption deck. It uses a lot of rogues and some flashy, that is flash speed spells to kind of disrupt your opponent and keep the pressure on while you mitigate their threats. A lot of the cards in this deck power up from having 8 or more cards in your opponent's graveyard, and so kind of doing a little bit of mill then makes us pretty potent. First off, we got the Merfolk Windrobber. This is a 1/1 flyer for 1, and it's a rogue. It's a kind of mediocre card on its own, but if they have 8 or more cards in their graveyard, you can sack him to draw a card, which turns him into basically a 1-mana cantrip. If you'd rather just get a card instead of him, that's okay. But he also can just be a body. He's there to stand in front of small aggro stuff from like aggressive red decks, things like that. But he can also get in a bit of damage too. On his own, he's not a whole lot, but he can compound with some other stuff pretty nicely. We've got Thieves Guild Enforcer. This is the classic 1-drop for this rogues deck. You'll see it quite a bit. Turn 1 Swamp, end of their turn, Thieves Guild Enforcer. This is a flash 1/1 for black. And when it or another rogue enters play, it mills them too. And this is our primary source of mill in this deck, is just Thieves Guild Enforcer and other rogues. Once you've got 8 cards in their graveyard, this becomes a 3/2 flash with Death Touch, which is an amazing deal for 1 mana. And it's a good source of damage for our opponent, or for beating our opponent. And the reason is because it's a 1-drop that trades with pretty much anything. And as a 3/2 with Death Touch, they will try and throw stuff in its way, but it always trades up, basically. It's a very, very efficient body that does just a lot of work. And having a 3/2 for 1 mana means that as soon as you hit that 8 threshold, that 8 card threshold in their graveyard, you've got a much larger creature than what you actually paid for. So it's one of the primary threats in this deck. We've got Thieving Skydiver. This is a 2/1 flying rogue. It's an evasive rogue, and that's pretty much all that needs to be said about it. But it's got Kicker, where it can steal an opponent's artifacts or equipment. And you just pay the same cost that your opponent did to play the card, so it's very, very efficient if you can get that extra ability, but I'm kind of just happy with it as a 2/1 flyer. 2/1 flyer is kind of baseline fine, in my opinion, in a lot of cases. It being a rogue means that you're getting a lot of value off of it by comboing with the Thieves Guild Enforcer and some other cards in your deck. The Kicker can steal Lucky Clovers pretty easily. I like it for that, and it can also grab, if you're running into those warrior equipment decks, the Maul of the Skyclave. It's a bit pricey, but you can take some good cards whenever you get that Kicker off. It's pretty nice. But that's just upside. It's one of the more questionable inclusions in the deck, but I've never felt bad running it. Its baseline is acceptable, and its upside is pretty significant when you can use it. We have Acquisitions Expert. This is a party card where you get to, when it comes in, look at a number of cards equal to the number of creatures in your party of your opponent's hand, and you discard one. This deck only has rogues in it, so we're only ever going to see one card. So it's basically a 1/2 rogue that says they discard a card when it comes into play. And I've been more than happy with it at that. It's got great synergy with Call of the Death Dweller, which I'll talk about in a minute. But again, a body that costs them a card right up front and does a couple things for me, like milling them 2 cards, is sufficient. It definitely does enough for me to like it in the deck. Soaring Thought Thief, this is a flashy 1/3 for 2. And if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, all your rogues get +1/0. So our Thieving Skydiver becomes much better at a 3/1 flyer, and Acquisitions Expert bumps up to a 2/2. So very nice. As a flash, it's also very useful for throwing in front of stuff like Fervent Champions. They don't see it, so they either have to run into it or not attack you. So the potential for a flashy creature is good, and it's also a bit of a stand-in for Drown in the Lock. So both of these are instant speed spells, and if you have both of them in your deck, your opponent can't tell whether you're waiting to counter or waiting to play a creature. And that bit of uncertainty can lead to your opponent making play mistakes pretty easily. So it's nice to have these 2 similar-looking threats in your hand. Which brings us to Drown in the Lock. Counter a spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard, or destroy a creature with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in their graveyard. So this is basically the most flexible removal / counter spell in the game once you get a bit of milling going, which is why these Thieves Guild Enforcers are so important, and the fact that the Merfolk Windrobber mills when it hits the opponent, very important. If you don't have some of these key pieces, it can be hard for this deck to get off the ground. So it's worth considering mulliganing for a Thieves Guild Enforcer or a Soaring Thought Thief, something like that. And it's nice that Acquisitions Expert dumps a card into their discard pile. It's not mill, but it still puts something in their discard for you to work with. But yeah, this will counter or destroy threats. Depending on what your matchup is, frequently this deck can put out some early evasive threats, like the Thieving Skydiver and the Soaring Thought Thief. These are enough to ping your opponent to death eventually. So you can hang on to a Drown in the Lock to answer your opponent's kind of comeback card. You can get ahead on the board and then keep your opponent from catching up. Or if you are still kind of working on getting their graveyard full and need to make some plays to get on the board, this can help you recover when they slam down something that could pose a problem to those plans. So it's extremely flexible. You just have to do a bit of work, but it's very, very, very strong late game. And then up in the 3 slots, we've got Nighthawk Scavenger, of course. This is a rogue, which can be relevant. Flying Death Touch Lifelink, power goes up the more stuff your opponent has in their graveyard. He's an incredible 3-drop. Just does so much work. Usually going to be the target of removal, but that's kind of okay because this deck has some recursion built in. We've got Brazen Borrower. It is another rogue, and it gives you a little bit more bounce to help play the tempo game and keep your opponent off their balance. Help set up for like a Drown in the Lock later. But also, I wouldn't be afraid to play this as a 3/1 flyer for 3, even without using Petty Theft. It looks like a counterspell when you have this up, and so you can also use it to intimidate and use Drown in the Lock or Brazen Borrower if they don't play something relevant. So, very, very versatile card. I'm only running 2. I think that's okay. It might be worth swapping some out for the Thieving Skydivers, but I'm pretty happy with this where it is. And then Call the Death Dweller. This gets back up to 3 mana cost of creatures from your discard pile. And this is the reason why I like Acquisitions Expert in here so much. Getting a Soaring Thought Thief is really good as well, but getting the Expert plus a Thieves Guild Enforcer from your discard pile means that your opponent is pitching a card and you're getting your Thieves Guild Enforcer. Usually when I'm Call the Death Dwellering, my opponent is down to their last few cards, and seeing me get back onto the board with 2 creatures and having to pitch a card can sometimes just end the game. Taking out those options from your opponent repeatedly with the Expert is very, very, very nice. So yeah, I really enjoy pulling back Acquisitions Expert with Call the Death Dweller. But Soaring Thought Thief is amazing too. Skydiver, not a great target, but do what you have to do. Merfolk Windrobber is a neat inclusion in here as well for a 1-drop to pull back, because you can sack it to draw a card if you don't think the 1/1 flying bodies can be relevant. So, Call the Death Dweller to cantrip, get back like a Thought Thief or an Acquisitions Expert and a Windrobber gets you some pretty good card advantage there. So I like Call a lot. I was on the fence about it, but it's definitely justified itself in my practice games today. It's just good card advantage. We play a lot of small stuff, so Call definitely helps us stay in the game. And Thieves Guild Enforcer likes to trade aggressively. You like to be attacking with it, but you got to clear out their blockers first, so it's not unusual for Thieves Guild to trade up and just get out of the game. Pulling it back with Call is always nice. And then finally we got Zareth San the Trickster. This is a very, very, very strong rogue. In a lot of matchups against the Dimir Rogues deck, you basically want to just play around with this and make sure that they can't land the Zareth San, be ready to kill it or deal with it somehow. What this is a flash creature for 5. It is a 4/4 body, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you can put a permanent. It's a creature, land, artifact, anything that you've milled from them, you can put it into play. This could even be planeswalkers if you get like a really lucky mill early on to put like an Ugin in their bin. Zareth San will put it into play if you can get him to connect. And it's not too difficult because he's got flash, so you can put it in at the end of their turn if they leave themselves open. Just plop that down and swing. Doesn't give them a lot of response time. But you can also pay 4 instead and return an unblocked attacking rogue you control to their hand to put him into play tapped and attacking. So if they don't block, and this is why it's important to have these cheap flyers, if they don't block your Thieving Skydiver or the Piddly Windrobber here, if they don't block it, you pay 4 mana, put it back into your hand, and then get something from their graveyard as well as hitting them for 4. And you have some even greater synergy if you can get an unblocked acquisitions expert or a brazen borrower. You can pull those back to your hand and then reuse their enters player adventure ability. So there is a lot of strong potential as Zareth San. He is legendary, so I've only got him as 2. It's probably worth running 3, maybe even 4 here, but I think he's a bit of a cheap gimmick and don't like relying on him that much. I prefer grinding my games out with Call of the Deathblower and Agadeem's Awakening. So the Awakening, you pay 6. If you can hit your triple black, you pay 6 and you get back 3 creatures. You get a Thieves Guild Enforcer, you get a Soaring Thought Thief, and you get a Scavenger. And that's hard to deal with unless they're sitting on a board wipe. And I haven't seen a whole lot of board wipes recently. I'm not going to say they don't exist. I've even run into some very grindy decks using Storm's Wrath, but putting 3 creatures into play again with 1 spell is really great because they're all relevant. And if your opponent's running low on cards, I'm very happy getting Acquisitions Expert into play as well as 2 other threats, because it could just pitch some of their crucial cards. If they're down to their last card and it's a Shatter the Sky, it's gone. So hard to react with. And we got another spell land, the Black Bloom Rogue. I think is just a pretty strong creature. It's one I would consider playing in the main slots rather than land if I didn't have the option. If this didn't have the land half of it, I still would consider it, because a 5/3 for 3 mana is incredible, and it's got Menace. So there's not a lot of work that you have to do to make this a good card. That being said, I do like hitting 6 mana for Agadeem's Awakening, so I frequently will just play this as a land, but having the option is very, very good. Rest of the land base is pretty simple. We've got 4 Clearwater Pathways and then a mix of islands and swamps. And we'll take it for a spin and see if we can get any wins. I have not had a lot of success on Arena lately, so we'll see. This deck's done well, but everything else I've been trying has been poor. And I think it's correct to run a healthy amount of disruption and counterspells in this format. It's just hard to keep it up. So this looks like a decent hand. Our opponent's going first, which is a little unfortunate. This deck really likes to go first. But between these 3 cards, I think we have some decent early game. Windrobber. This is nice. It usually gets a few good mills in unless your opponent's got early flyers, because nobody likes wasting removal on a 1-drop. Alright, so now we have Brazen Borrower to bounce something. The Seasoned Hellblade is actually a really scary card to me. I've seen a lot of games get turned around just by early Seasoned Hellblades. Alright, so we are... Do I want to bounce that? Forces them to replay it. I think I am just going to bounce it. Need another island to play this Brazen Borrower, unfortunately, but if they want to play the Luminarch Ascension again, that's fine. I keep calling it Luminarch Ascension. It is the Luminarch Aspirant. The Ascension was from original Zendikar. I'm just going to go ahead and play out the Nighthawk Scavenger, since these are retroactive. Unfortunately, I have made an error that I need an island to remedy. Because he only has 2 cards in his graveyard, so I cannot kill the Linvala. Let's see. If I swing out here, I lose the Scavenger, but continue milling. I've got 3 Drown in the Locks. I am just going to hold for now. I can counter his Luminarch Aspirants. Oh, he might be playing... Oh, with Watcher of the Series, he might be playing Lofty Denial. That'd be interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and try and counter this, I think. He could Lofty Denial this, which I think is fine with me. Okay, now we've got 3 cards in his graveyard, which means I can Drown in the Lock his Linvala. Alright, I think we're looking okay here. I don't care about this Paragon. This is an allies, or a party build, which could have some pretty strong play to it, but, like, the you shouldn't underestimate allies. Because they've got some pretty big burst potential, but we've got some pretty strong control here. I'm pretty happy with how this looks. They're gonna have to play some removal to kill this Scavenger. He probably just gives the Paragon hexproof or indestructible. It doesn't matter which one. I think he's trying to consider whether or not I have instant speed removal at in black. And I don't think there is a 1... No, there's got to be some cheap black 1-cost removal at instant speed. I think it's all sorcery. But we'll put him up to 5 cards in his graveyard, so our Drown is pretty good now. I just need another island to really be going. Seasoned Hollow Blade, so it looks like he's going to try and race us, which is going to be very difficult with this Scavenger in the air. Alright, we got the island. So I'm going to go ahead and Soaring Thought Thief. We've got Drown in the Lock as precaution against anything that he could do at this point. I'm kind of fine with that, but a 2-for-1's a 2-for-1. I'm going to counter it. It gets rid of both the bounce and his guy that can kill a Scavenger, so... I think right now the only thing I'm really worried about is like a Shatter the Sky. And even then, I got Call, so... We're looking okay. I'm just trying to see if there's anything good to bring back with Zerasan. I think there is. I think I'd like this Linvala. Oh, cool. Alright, he's got a Luminarch Ascension, so he's got a Rogue, Warrior, Cleric. He's got a full party, so we do kind of have to be careful. So his Brazen Borrower can trade with any of my guys right now. Yeah, we'll take 6. It's okay. But I think it's worth it to get a Linvala out. He's tapped out, so there's not anything he's going to be doing. Trade with the Scavenger, I presume. Oh. Okay, yeah. Trades with the Scavenger. We'll put back... Oops. Yeah. Activate. I've accidentally cast him before, and it's very sad when that happens. That gets us 7 damage. I kind of want to just get an island if possible. It is not. Alright, so we'll get Linvala, and now... It's going to be tough for him. Our guys are indestructible or hexproof. He can swing for quite a bit. Spends most of his mana cycling, so I think we're okay. Not quite quite up to a full party, I think. Alright, we did it. Seeing more and more party decks. The ones I've built, the main problem I had was a mana base for them. I feel like you need green for the Tajuru Paragon, but I also feel like you need blue and white for Linvala. But I also feel like you need black for the strong payoff cards. So obviously I have to cut something, and I haven't found the best mix that I like. But so far I think I'm leaning towards Bant. You get the Paragons, you get Linvala, you get the Core Warrior that makes all the tokens. Alright, we're fighting old money. This is a really sketchy hand. Our opponent is going first again. I think I'm going to keep it. I don't like it, but I think I'm going to keep it. This Drown is pretty bad until we play out our Acquisitions Experts. Did draw a land, which is nice. Ooh, Skyclave Shade. It's been a while since I've seen this one. So we're gonna have to trade... If we're milling him, it's possible that we... Ooh, okay. So he's probably just gonna toss a Demonic Embrace on his Skyclave Shade. Interesting. Gives him +1, so Thieving Skydiver could do it. Yep, alright. So he's discarded one card. So yeah, I think I'd just go with a Skydiver. And what's going to happen is if he spends a card to kill the Skydiver, then I get to... He'll be at 2 cards in his graveyard, and I can just drown in the lock. If he doesn't, then I can trade here, and I don't think he wants to do that, so he's probably just going to buff the Skyclave Shade again. That's my guess. Ooh. Scourge is pretty good. We'll definitely take this trade. If it's a trade. Maybe he has a pump spell for, like, lifelink, or... You know, he wouldn't do lifelink. Okay. I'm pretty fine with that. That does refill his hand, and he gets to recast this Shade when he plays it next turn. But this buys us some significant time. He's gonna go ahead and kill it. Okay. Well, he's gonna find himself running out of options pretty soon. Because we've got a lot of experts. So, the Thieves Guild Enforcer doesn't have Death Touch yet. Oh, it will as soon as I play it, though. But my guess is he goes land Skyclave Shade from his graveyard. Oh, looks like we're gonna get a lot more value. Can you go ahead and swing? I mean, that is a very big Scourge. We just get to destroy it. Alright, our opponent has frittered away their hand. I'll take a Scourge. Although there's a strong argument to take the Skyclave Shade. But if he plays the Shade, then it can't block, and we're basically just going to kill him. So our opponent's in a pretty tough spot. See some juicy stuff in here. Oh, he just plays it. Alright, he lost. Shade can't block. Alright. This is a very gambly deck from Old Money Rich here. I do like the Scourge a lot, and I hadn't gone back to reconsider him this once Uro left, but if there is a lot less life gain, then maybe he's viable again. I'll definitely have to check it out. I had a cool Suicide Rakdos deck that played it. And I liked it a lot. It was a lot of fun to play. But it just wasn't viable because a lot of decks would start out like just gaining life and be up to 24 and be like, well, Scourge could kill them, except he's useless. We have no black, and we're going first. I think this is a mulligan. I guess I'll keep it. I'm going to throw back the thieving. Oh. That was dumb. I definitely should have led with the Wind Robber. I'm actually just going to go with the Wind Robber because I want to start putting stuff in his graveyard. But I have made a mistake. Fortunately, if I get an island, I can... Oh. I'm just going to use Guild Enforcer. I'm not sure... This is actually probably an Omnath deck, isn't it? With red and a Ruin Crab. See, I don't know what the red is doing in a Ruin Crab deck. It doesn't look like your typical Omnath deck. These Thieving Skydivers are not putting up a good showing for us, are they? Okay, so I can Drown in the Lock to get rid of this Ruin Crab and slow our opponent down some. I don't think that's what I want to do. I think I'm actually just going to sit here and see if I can counter what he does next. If he plays a 4-drop that I can't counter, then I'll just get the Ruin Crab. But right now I'm kind of happy to let him fill up our discard with the Call of the Death Dweller. I just kind of want to stay in the game right now. Alright, he passed his turn. This is probably just going to eat a counter spell is what it looks like to me. Or not, he doesn't consider it important. That's also fair. Alright, so we've got Agadeem's Awakening. I am going to, I think, just call here. I want both of these in play. Alright. That resolved. I didn't really expect it to, but maybe he's Storm's Wrathing next. Looks like we're at the 8 cards threshold now. Which means I'll be able to sack this Merfolk Wind Robber. Or if I get a Zerasan, I can flop him in. I'm down. Yeah, there's the Storm's Wrath. See, kind of okay. I mean, I think that's fine. So I do like my lands, but I think I'm just going to... Well... Yeah. Go Thieving Skydiver. And sit here with a Drown in the Lock. He'll probably just play removal. This seems to be an incredibly removal-heavy deck. See, I don't like that. Let's get rid of that. So it is a straight-up mill deck with just red for removal. Which means that... Yeah, we're going to eat a lot of removal, but Call of the Death Dweller is going to be very good. I'd like to get 2 Thieves Guild Enforcers then. I don't think that's in the cards. But our opponent is down to no cards left. All right, let's snipe his last thing, and I guess we'll just go out with a thieving skydiver. What was he hanging on to? Opt. All right, no opt for you. Not as important. I probably, knowing that it's an opt, I would have been happier with playing call there, but that's okay. Didn't want to take chances. All right, opponent has a land. We'll commence the assault. I'm gonna play this rogue out. This is a lot of damage. It probably just dies a spot removal. It would be bad for him to get a Storm's Wrath now, but this seems okay to me. He blocks here, takes 7. I'm gonna hold back the rest of this, which might just be giving him unnecessary time. And he's flooding out, so this might be it. Agadeem's Awakening. Have I got a Nighthawk yet? Yeah, we'll go like this. He's got basically has his Storm's Wrath this turn. And even if he does, we've got a lot of ways to get back in the game, so. Let's see what he's got. We did it. Alright, 3-0. Not the most competitive games, but what's important is that this deck puts on pressure pretty much the whole game, which is, I think, pretty key right now. If you don't apply that pressure, then people kind of get carried away with the top ends of their decks. I've seen a lot of pretty, not greedy because it's working, but very high-end value decks. But I've also seen a lot of aggressive decks that punish those ones. This kind of threads the line. It plays well with the flash against counter spells and control decks, but it kind of presents threats at all points in the game. So I really like it. Things that I might switch up, I'm not really sure. So you could argue for more Zerasan, more Brazen Borrowers, but Call's always been good to me, so I feel like you definitely want this. Probably take out the Thieving Skydivers if we're being honest. Are there any other good rogues? Let's see. The Duelist is a good one for against red if you're worried about mono red. If you're sideboarding, the Duelist is great. It jumps in when they least expect it and snipes off X1 creatures, so I do like that one. Don't think I like the Mimic. It wouldn't hurt to put it in, I guess, in place of some of the islands. Mimic's best, I think, in the party deck. If you want to get fun, you can run the what's it called? Woolmage's Domination. That's a pretty good card. You hit 8 cards pretty reliably, and then you spend a few mana to steal their best thing. It's pretty vicious, especially in limited. I think it's a little too greedy for what this deck wants to do. Honestly, I think... Actually, I'm surprised I didn't have it in here. Anti-Cognition is probably the route you'd want to go. If you're going to change this up, put in some Anti-Cognitions in place of Skydivers, maybe? I did like having the option... Like, another body is just good. I don't really want to cut down too much on the bodies. Actually, probably in place of Brazen Borrower. Not that Borrower was bad, but I like the 2-drops. So Anti-Cognition in place of those Brazen Borrowers, I think. But yeah, I'm going to try and... I guess I'll work on the Rakdos black-red deck with the Skyclave for next week. Didn't really have any success finding stuff this week, but we'll try for Scourge of the Skyclaves for next week. So we'll be back on Friday.